in the fog-choked village of Verhim, Norway. Locals whisper about the north corner of St. Olav's cemetery where soil turns black and never thaws. In 1913, during a rushed expansion, gravediggers struck something deeper than bedrock, a vault, lined with swaddled infant remains, each mouth packed with consecrated ash. The church declared it a medieval ossuary and sealed the site within 24 hours. All records were marked Ecclesia Privitans, suitable for public knowledge. I've recovered film reels from a defrocked archivist. If you're ready to uncover what even the church denied, type "I'm ready" in the comments. She remembered it before she ever saw it. That peculiar breath of cold, sudden and bodily, like a forgotten cellar door left ajar. The scent came with it frost, mildew, and something older, like the starched hem of funeral cloth gone sour with time. Elias Thune stood in the vestry of St. Olav's, not as a man but as a hinge in a story no one had opened for 74 years. His coat, damped from sea mist, clung to his ribs like a second skin, and in his right hand, shaking faintly, was the key. They had warned him the floor sometimes buckled when the tide was high, not the sea. The groundskeeper had muttered, eyes lowered, "It's what's underneath, like it breathes." The vault was carved beneath the church, deeper than any parish records mentioned. He found it by matching the wax-scarred corner of the cemetery map with the wrong angle of a stairwell, 14 steps where there should be 12. He counted again with his fingers pressed against stone, damp with condensation and something that shimmered, faintly iridescent, like old milk turned in a jar. When the iron latch gave, it screamed not from rust, but reluctance, and the cold that bled out was not air but silence, dense, patient, and ecclesiastic. It was a silence that had watched baptisms and beatings alike, that remembered the words the priests forgot, a silence that had teeth. The vault held no pews, just earth-beaten smooth and 6 wooden crates stacked like offerings in a confessional. One of them bore the sigil of the Norwegian Evangelical Synod, a lamb in profile, haloed with a sprig of burning myrrh at its feet. Another had no sigil, just a red wax seal cracked like an old knuckle. Elias bent down, resting his lantern on the frostbitten stone, and ran his fingers over the lid. His gloves did nothing to blunt the sting of cold. He pried it open. The nitrate film was brittle, scabbed with mold, and reeking of vinegar. It hissed faintly in its canister, like it remembered fire. Beneath it lay a child's bonnet, singed black at the crown, threads stiff with ash and twisted into shapes that recalled no human weaving. When he lifted it, flakes drifted to the ground like grey snow. It was not stitched for warmth. It was stitched to keep something in. A map was folded beneath the bonnet, so tightly compressed the creases had fossilized into the parchment. Red wax bled through one corner, pooling over a name too blurred to read. But Elias knew the shape. He had walked that corner of the cemetery as a boy, dared by cousins to touch the bent crucifix where no grass grew. The stone angel had no face. The frost there never melted, not even when the sky burned pink with midsummer. He stepped back, and the oil in the lantern flickered. A second film reel sat just beyond the map, labeled in a slanted clerical hand, 1953 Ascension Day. Close, he did not want to know what that meant, but his hands reached anyway, as if summoned by something older than his own memories, something stitched into his blood long before birth. He unspooled it, careful not to tear the celluloid. Images bled through the transparency. A chapel interior, a white crib, and a woman kneeling in the aisle, her veil soaked through with something darker than water. The reel ended with 13 seconds of stillness. Nothing moved. No actors, no procession, just grain and shadow. Then, a blink, not an edit, not a cut, a blink slow vertical, as if the chapel itself had eyes. He dropped it. The reel clattered like bone. When he turned to leave, the frost had crept up the walls. His lantern dimmed. A slow, creaking shift echoed from behind the crates, adjusting, or something that did not want to be left alone. Elias backed toward the stairs, breathing through his scarf. The ash clung to his clothes. The bonnet was still in his pocket, though he didn't remember placing it there. Outside, the bells of St. Olaf's tolled the hour, but they rang wrong, too slow, off-pitch, as if echoing from a tower underwater. Elias did not speak on the drive home. He kept the trunk sealed, though the map sat on the passenger seat, leaking wax onto the leather. The archivist's flat in Bergen was warm, almost offensively so, and yet he could not stop shivering. He hung his coat, washed his hands 3 times, and sat beside the unlit hearth, staring into it like a mourner waiting for the priest. He did not touch the bonnet, but once, just before sleep took him, he thought he heard breath, not his. The tape player clicked on by itself. From it came an old hymn, Wie vagad han, as fast, Enborg, the voices distant and cracked by time, a child's harmony threadbare underneath. He pressed stop, but the tape did not end. There was a sound beneath the music, not a voice, not words, a sort of sucking inhale, like air through wet linen. She was buried in linen, Elias whispered, aloud, but something was breathing underneath it, and behind him, faint on the window pane, a child's palmprint steamed against the glass, though it was warm inside, and the frost, they said, never thaws. The paper peeled back like old skin, fragile, blood-yellowed, and threaded through with the mildew of damp storage and time that had never forgiven. Elias wore gloves, nicotine, archival, but the smell still reached him, milk left out too long, the ghost of candle wax, and ink that had fermented in the margins like confession. At the top of the folder, in a Vatican hand, read the classification, Ecclesia. It had been stamped twice, once in red, once overwritten in black. That alone was a ritual, red for error, black for erasure. Whatever lay in the pages beneath was not meant for parish record, not even for repentance. The first page had no words, only a charcoal rubbing of a grave slab with the name scratched out. It looked almost clawed through the stone. Below it, a scrawled date 21 May 1913 and a signature that ended mid-curve, as though the priest had been pulled away mid-prayer. Elias traced the margin. Ink had run in a spiral, as if water or breath had touched it. The cemetery expansion. That year had been documented in diocesan blue books, but never completed. The foundations for the northern lot were dug and then abandoned. No explanation, no weather interference. Just a line drawn across the page like a throat-cut clean dot. The folder yielded a second sheet, a testimonial from a gravedigger, unnamed, Norwegian, male, estimated age 55. Pinned to it was a lock of hair dried, brittle and white, not with age but with shock. Elias stared at it, far longer than he meant to. I did not dig shallow. The testimony began, but the soil was not right. It shifted. The handwriting was uneven, crosses slanted. Some words were corrected in Latin, as if sanctifying their horror gave them permission to remain. He had spoken of finding rope knots in the dirt, perfectly preserved, though no rope had been buried. One was tied in a Marian loop, used by monastics in penance. Another was a hangman's braid. Both were impossible beneath new earth. I saw the blanket again. The man had written, same as in the crib room, stitched with stars. But it moved. He had refused to work after that. Within days, committed. No diagnosis, just an internal note, contagion of the mind. Elias circled it in pencil, not for annotation, but out of instinct, as if marking it would stop it from slipping into him. To Dot, he turned the page and flinched. A photograph, sepia, edges singed, perhaps intentionally. The image showed a child's grave, marked not with a name, but a symbol. Two concentric circles around a small handprint, pressed deep into clay. No epitaph, no dates, just a rosary draped over the top, half buried in soot. Her death certificate was attached. Infant female, no baptismal name. Cause of death, respiratio, negro black breath, a medieval term, no longer in use. Associated with soot inhalation, but the lungs had no char. The final line noted, ash was on the baby's tongue, but no fire had touched her. Elias set the page down. The room swayed. One of the film reels he'd found in the vault sat beside him, unopened. He did not look at it, couldn't. Instead, his eyes fell on the edge of the folder, water-stained corner curling inward. Beneath it, tucked almost like contraband, was a short letter written on liturgical parchment, thinner, holier. It had been folded 3 times and still bore the wax. Imprint of St. Olaf's mitre with the cross reversed. The ink had faded to grey, but the voice in it was desperate. They told me the girl was still, but the linen moved. I saw it through the keyhole. She had no breath, but something underneath the shroud. It opened its mouth. There was no signature, only a line in Latin, barely legible, in a shaking clerical hand. Ecclesia custodit, said Nank. The church guards, but it does not heal. Elias stood. The room was wrong again. That was the only word that came, not cold but hollow, as if the walls had been peeled slightly outward, just enough to make space for something else. His breath left no fog, but he tasted smoke, dry, old, faintly sweet, like altar incense burned to bone. The lights flickered once, held, then resumed. His eyes dropped to the folder. There, across the spine of the document, written in red threadknot ink, was a single-stitched word, Ascensio, the Latin for ascension, but also the name of the festival day listed on the reel. Elias reached for it. His hands no longer shook. They didn't feel like his hands at all. He slid the reel into the projector. The bulb buzzed. The wall filled with grain. No sound, only picture. A field, overgrown. Then a figure, a priest standing before a stone, partially unearthed. His face was smudged, too bright, like overexposure, but only for him. Around the grave, children in ceremonial, white girls with veils too large, eyes dark beneath lace. One of them turned, her mouth moved, but the film had no sound. She lifted her hands, and from her palms fell wax dripping, slow, congealing into the dirt like tears that had weight. A bell tolled, but too late. The reel cut to black. The projector did not stop running. The film had ended, but the reel spun on. Something inside it clicked. Again. Then came the second film, unmarked. This one was shot inside a chapel room. Small crib at center. A nun's habit hung on the wall like a flayed skin. Light filtered through broken stained glass, red and violet, across a pale figure curled beneath muslin. Elias stepped closer to the image. He could smell milk. A priest entered frame. He leaned over the crib, said something. His breath fogged the glass of the lantern nearby, but the baby's breath did not. Yet her mouth was open. Something moved beneath the sheet. Not her body. Something inside her. The priest recoiled. His face contorted, then stilled, as if he'd been forgiven all at once, or consumed. The screen went dark. Elias shut off the machine. No sound followed, only the slow dripping from the radiator, but it smelled like wax. He turned to the window. Frost curled at the corners again. Outside, the church bell rang 13 times, and from somewhere deep in the archive a drawer slid open, alone, and slowly. The tape clicked, then hummed, an old reel brittle with mildew, spinning like the mouth of a prayer box. The interviewer's voice was distant, clinical, but the man who answered his voice sounded like it came from beneath the floorboards. They called us down when the frost broke. North Quarter, April of that year. The tape hissed, as if remembering wind. The gravedigger's name was withheld, sealed beneath a paper tab, marked maladies, cognitive, contagious. The transcript was dated 1938. Interview conducted inside Sulvium Asylum, 2 months before the fire. The last entry before the pages curled black with soot. I told M. that patch never froze. Even in January, it steamed like breath come out the ground. Elias sat hunched beside the player, eyes adjusting to the flicker of lantern light. He hadn't slept in 19 hours. The other reels lay unopened, nested in ash on the carpet, like eggs in a cold nest. This one he'd found inside a hollowed hymnal, the tape wedged between Psalms 91 and 94. He shall cover thee with his feathers. The voice went on. We weren't supposed to dig that week, but they wanted it quick. Said no priest needed to see it, just a hole, just a hole. Faint scratching rose beneath the man's words, not interference, not mechanical. Scratching, slow and deliberate, like bone over stone. They were swaddled in wool, but something inside kept moving. The gravedigger's tone changed, almost childlike. I saw one open Janot. The linen came loose, just a bit. They stitched it shut, but not well. Her gums were grey and dry, but her tongue. He made a sound, choked laughter, or weeping. Powder on her tongue, ash or something like it, but no fire, none, not even a scorch on the wrap. They lied about the smoke, said it was a lantern spill, said we'd breathed too deep. The interviewer interrupted. Do you remember how many graves were dug? The reply came in a sing-song murmur. 1 by 1, we sank the bell. 2 by 2, they'd twitch and swell. 3 by 3, the rope was tight. 4 by 4, they screamed at night. Elias paused the tape. The sound lingered in the room, not echo, not memory, just breath, not his dot. He stood, stepped to the window. Bergen's night pressed heavy against the glass. From the courtyard below, a shape shifted behind the old chapel's curtain. Nothing moved after, but the frost bloomed fast, spidering in through the corners. When he returned to the tape, the voice was lower, the one they buried last. She had teeth, baby ones, but too many, all flat, no speds, just rings. Rose. Priest told us not to look, said don't name her, said she weren't ours. Something flickered in Ilias's mind. That phrase, she weren't ours, it had surfaced before in a letter, maybe, or the margins of a medical intake log. He turned to the file box and sifted through the velvet soft folders, each labeled in rust-colored ink. He found it beneath one marked simply still a page, torn at the bottom. Inscribed, "We baptized her with silence. We buried the bell. We will not name what lives in linen." He turned back to the tape, rewound, played again. The voice broke, coughed, then resumed. "I lost one of mine that day. My back tooth. Heard it snap when the second grave opened. Wasn't pain, not normal. Felt like someone bit back." The interviewer asked, "Bit back?" Silence. Then, quieter. "They buried them soft, but they left them wide. They prayed with stones, and they wept with pride. But those who dig must never cry, or she will drink them dry." A scraping sound, closer this time, tape dragging, or something, behind the speaker. Then a second voice, faint, almost underneath. "The bells, left under her crib." Elias stopped the reel. He exhaled sharply and touched his molars. Pressure bloomed in one phantom ache. He checked the floor beneath the table. Nothing there, but the air was wet. Not damp wet, like breath on skin after fever. He stepped into the back room, where the archive lights buzzed faintly. On the wall hung a map of the cemetery's north quarter, hand-drawn, a corner marked with a thin red X, no graves labeled there. Just a note, Subterra, no hymn. The hymn. He turned, walked to the storage drawer, pulled out a cracked phonograph record, no label, just a mark etched on the underside, a child's palm print. When he played it, the speakers bled static for 10 seconds. Then, singing high off key, a child's voice, words hard to place, not Latin, not quite Norwegian, a liturgical imitation, as if learned phonetically by someone who could not hear the notes they sang. Beneath the voice, a thudding, repetitive, like dirt landing on wood. Then, silence. Elias let the record spin. His reflection watched him from the window, except it did not breathe when he did. The tape clicked back on. The gravedigger spoke again, voice hollow, hoarse. "You ever seen a tooth dug from a cradle?" "I have. Milk-white but long, curved in the middle, like it had been chewed before." She spat. "It had me, I swear." Tongue moved like a snake's, like a twist of rope. He chuckled, softly. "I used to drink, not anymore. Sober 3 years when I saw her. That's how I knew it was real. You only forget what's real. And I never forgot her." The interviewer asked, "What did the priest do?" The answer came slower than before. He whispered her name. "I think I don't know it now. I wouldn't say it if I did." Pause. But he kissed her forehead, then walked into the lake. Didn't take his shoes off, still holding the bell. The tape stopped. No click, no wind down. Just stopped. Elias stared. Then, from the edge of the desk, a soft patter, a molar, not his. It rolled twice, then stilled. He turned slowly toward the drawer where the phonograph had been. It was open, and from inside, cradled in the velvet length of baby teeth, all flat, and smiling, there was something in the paper, some residue left by grief, or God, or neither. Elias could feel it before he saw it. The ledger lay flat, though the pages curled faintly inward, as if trying to swallow themselves. The binding was cracked. The spine hummed with damp, spine rat curling the vellum like skin drawn too long through stagnant water. When he touched it, the book trembled, not visibly, not enough to measure, but he felt it through the glove, like a heartbeat that did not belong to the living. The infant ledger of St. Olaf's, 1892 to 1913, tucked in the sacristy wall vault, behind loose brick and waxed prayer cloth. The priest's seal had already half disintegrated, its beeswax smeared across the outer cover in a shape Elias could not name. The ink had bled through the vellum, not black, not blue, but red, soaked so deep it stained the table beneath it. He turned the first page, a list of names, delicate and spare, mothers mostly, wives of parish men, dates written in a clerical hand. Nothing unusual until the second folio. 20-7 entries, all infants, all unnamed, each marked stillbirth, no baptisms recorded, no midwife names, and all logged in the same red ink, as though written in a single sitting. by the same hand. The handwriting was meticulous. No smudges, no corrections, just a smooth, gliding horror like the quill had never once paused for breath. Beneath each line, a single dot of wax, not spilled, but placed. But Elias adjusted the magnifying glass. The wax wasn't decorative. It sealed something, perhaps, a fold. Beneath the parchment, he peeled gently at the first. Underneath, a faint circle, inked in haste, a sigil, maybe, or an initial M. It looked scratched, not written, almost clawed. He traced it with a cotton swab, breath held, and then the next entry. Same red ink, same wax dot, same clawed mark dot. He kept going by the 5th page. The pattern deepened, always the same hand, same date structure, same invisible name beneath the wax. But one broke it. Entry #34. The wax had turned black, crusted and dry, flaking to the touch. The line read, Infinis sine namen. Mortius natus said, oculi apati, stillborn, but the eyes were open. Elias sat back. The room shifted quiet, like the breath before a bell is rung. The pages smelled of starch, soot, and milk. A thin draught crept under the door, pulling incense ash into the air. In delicate spirals he returned to the ledger. A blank page followed, then another dot, then suddenly, in larger script rushed, diagonal across the page. Infantia, sub terra, no right, no salt, no name, locked ledger by request of Dom Elias V. Let them sleep, let them sleep. The ink here was brown, dried blood. Still, thick, after a century. Elias swallowed. His eyes traced the initial dot, Elias V., not his own name. A relative, maybe, or worse, himself looped back through this house of mirrors. There was no way to tell. The parish archives listed 5 Eliases in the family line, 2 priests, 1 archivist, 1 child, no records past age 4. He touched the paper again. It shuddered. From the hallway came a faint scrape like something heavy being dragged across stone. Elias stood, lantern in hand. He stepped out, down the narrow corridor. The light shifted candles on the altar guttering before wind that wasn't there. One icon had cracked down the face, an old Virgin, an Anne-child, now smiling only with half a mouth. A rope hung beside it, thin and ceremonial. When he touched it, the fibers were damp. His heart pounded, not with fear, but recognition. He turned back, to the ledger. The last page held one more name, scrawled large, angry, desperate, Benedicta. No surname, no date, just a smudge beside it, in the same red ink, a THUMBPRINT. Infant, -sized. He closed the book, breath ragged. As the covers met, a fine powder escaped the spine-soft grey, the color of burnt silk. It landed on his glove. He rubbed it between his fingers. It tasted like ash. He backed away, but behind him, something fell. A cradle, old, woven. He had not seen it when he entered. It sat where the communion bench had been twisted, collapsed inward, threads frayed as if chewed. In it, a single linen wrap, unmoving. He stepped closer. A bell string was tied around the handle, the kind used for infant death vigils. He did not touch it. He turned the lantern low, sat again before the ledger and listened. For a moment, nothing. Then from the cradle, the faintest whisper of fabric shifting, not the wind, not a mouse. Breath, and meath. It a sound like pages turning themselves. He didn't look back, but as he reached to close the book once more, a child's palm print appeared right across the entry for Benedicta. Wet. And warm. The babies had no names, but the ledgers trembled when you touched them. The wire recorder whirred faintly, its steel reel glinting, like a blade under candlelight. It was July, 1941. The air was close, pulsing with thunder that hadn't yet arrived. Klaus Renner, ethnography and guest of the Benedictine annex near Verhume, sat hunched in the abbey's unused nursery, a microphone the size of a fist cradled in his palm. His shirt clung to him, not from heat, but from breath held too long. She was already there when he entered. The girl, 9 or younger, in the shadows, age lost meaning. She stood beside the crib, small hands folded like a funeral effigy's. Her dress was torn, laced at the cuffs, damp and grey at the hem, no shoes, lips pale and chapped, but bloodless, eyes downcast. She hadn't spoken. She had sung. Klaus clicked the record lever. The tape caught. The girl opened her mouth, not a melody, not at first. a pulse like the tremble of a hymn remembered by someone who never learned to read. The first phrase came in fragments, Latin, reversed. The syntax scrambled, vowels weeping into each other. Then the rhythm found her. She didn't cry, she hummed, through teeth too small to be hers. The windows darkened, no clouds outside, no smoke, but the light fell wrong, and the wall behind her filled with shadow not her own. She did not blink. Her gaze stayed fixed on the cradle, where a rosary lay snapped across the sheet, its crucifix rusted through the wood. Klaus had spent a decade collecting death ballads from the Carpathians, lullabies for stillbirths in alpine caves, but this was different. It was not mourning, it was devotion, not to a child, not to a god, to something in between. He adjusted the needle, careful not to startle her. She did not flinch. Her mouth widened on the word mater, but the sound failed. Her voice cracked into silence, lips shaping the syllable but never finishing it. She bit down, then closed her mouth like a child remembering rules. She turned to him, and smiled, thin, not unkind, but ancient. He whispered, "Was that a hymn?" She shook her head once. "No, they sang it." "Who?" The girl tilted her head toward the wall, and Klaus noticed then on the plaster, drawn in something brown, was a row of tiny handprints, staggered in height like a coral stair. Each print faced downward, as if pressed in descent. A bell rang somewhere beneath them, not the abbey's too. Small dot, too close. He stood abruptly. "Where are the sisters?" The girl only pointed to the floor. Later, he would note that the planks beneath the crib were warmer than the air around them, that his heels stuck faintly when he stepped, that he smelled milk and wax but not rot. Never rot. The recording continued. She began the hymn again, slower now, voice trembling. Her hand reached out, not toward him, but toward the microphone. She held her fingers near it, then splayed them wide. From the center of her palm, wax dripped, a soft, warm bead, like a votive candle, crying. It hit the mic with a sound like breath against glass. Klaus whispered again, "Who gave you that song?" She blinked once. Her lips moved, but no sound came. He leaned forward. He read it on her mouth. "Benedicta," the tape stuttered. Then resumed. Klaus wrote quickly now, a pencil scratching on the back of a ration slip. Reversed. Ecclesial phrasing, non-standard cadence, not Latin proper, liturgical mimicry, or pre-canon echo. Tridentian fragment. The girl's head tilted. She began to hum again. He looked up, but she was no longer standing. She was crouched. At the crib's foot, no movement had passed, no breath had shifted, but she was there now, knees curled beneath her, like a postulant in a silent rite. Her mouth was still open. Her throat did not rise or fall. Yet the song continued. He stepped backward. His ankle struck something. A book. He bent. A hymnal. Old, soft as skin. The leather binding peeled at the corner, stitched not with thread but hair, infant fine and brittle. He opened it to the middle. There, in the gutter of the spine, a line of reversed Latin. Non baptizata, non amata, sed cantata, not baptized, not loved, but sung. The pages reeked of tallow. Behind him. The girl exhaled, and her breath carried ash. He turned. She was silent again, her hands in her lap, her eyes wide. She looked behind him. He followed her gaze to the mirror. Klaus had not realized there was a mirror, but there it was, nailed to the door, its frame ringed with rosary knots. Its glass was not whole. A crack, split it top to bottom, just left of center. And in that crooked silver, he saw himself, and behind him an arm, small, reaching from beneath the crib. Its fingers dragged the floor in slow, circular rhythm. Wax pooled beneath them, and from the shadow, a voice much smaller than the girl's whispered. Mater. The candle blew out. When light returned, she was gone. The recording never stopped. Renner was never seen again. But the tape survived, filed in the Verheim Annex under Folklore, Category 7 C. Disputed origin, sealed by the Church in 1943. No name for the child. No confirmed transcription. Only this note, handwritten at the top of the real box in pale red ink. She didn't cry. She hummed through teeth, too small to be hers. The journal's cover had burned in a perfect circle, neither fully consumed, nor spared, as if fire had bowed before what lay within. Its pages clung to one another, fused at the edges, fragile as moth wings, but the ink endured, brown where it once was black. Script cramped and hurried, but liturgical. a sister's hand. Somewhere inside, ash shifted when the spine breathed. Elias opened it with care. Dust rising in delicate spirals. Ashvale Convent, March 1912. Weather, still. Orchards bloomed. Except they hadn't. Even now, a century later, no apples grew in the soil behind what remained of the convent. Not one in 90 years. The trees had long since been felled, but the ground held their shape like bruises. No grass, no moss, just a wet, slow cold beneath the loam, as if the roots had been salted, or something beneath them still drank. Read on, we were told to sing, so the babies wouldn't hear the soil. The line wasn't dated, it was written in the center of a blank page, alone, not part of the other entries, like a confession between thoughts, or a chant remembered. After waking. He turned the next page. Here the ink returned. Descriptions, rehearsals, burial practice. They called them dry baptisms. The infants were not named. No water, no bell, just a linen wrap, sometimes second-hand, from the infirmary, sometimes stitched from altar cloth with a cross unpicked. The girls brought them before dawn, swaddled and silent, and laid them in the chapel vestibule beneath the Virgin of Sorrows. Then they sang low, off-pitch hymns, never together, always one at a time. The sister writing never signed her name, but her sorrow lived in the margins. She wrote of the orchard lot, of pits dug at the base of the youngest trees, shallow, always recovered by morning. She wrote that the soil smelled sweet when it shouldn't, that sometimes, after the second day, bees came, but they would not land on the fruit. The apples softened too fast, she noted once, even when picked early, as though something inside them tries to breathe. Elias paused. The candle beside him flickered, and wax slid down in a long, pale line. It landed on the corner of the journal, and bled into the name of a hymn, Domini, non dum, nati Lord, not yet born. He ran a finger over it. It was real, too real. And then, as if the journal knew the moment was near, the next page revealed the orchard map, a crude sketch. Apple trees in rows. A small circle at the center marked rehearsals only. Beneath it, no rites after second blink. The sentence was underlined twice. The next entry bled down the page, like thawed milk. She blinked. Beneath the linen, I saw it. The others did not. Her eyes were clear, not clouded, not still, just slow, like someone waiting to be told what to do. Elias gripped the sides of the journal. His hands shook. The ink changed on the following line. Turned from brown to red, not paint, something thinner, something that had run before drying. The final lines were carved in a frantic hand. We left her anyway. I sang louder than before. I think I hurt her ears, but she didn't cry. Just blinked again, then stopped. Beneath that, pressed so hard the letters tore the page, we had ash on our hands. It stuck. It stayed. He turned the last page. Nothing. Then a pressed petal. Dark, brittle, folded between two nearly transparent layers of vellum. It had once been white. Now it was the color of dried blood. The edge curled into the shape of a small mouth. Outside, something stirred. Elias rose, crossed to the boarded window, looked down. The orchard ruins swayed, no wind, but the trees moved. Not all, just one. A sapling had begun to rise, thin and quivering, its bark white as a nun's habit. And beneath it, where the roots cracked open the ground, a shroud lay half unfurled in the soil. He stepped back, a sound behind him, at him. Low, wordless. From inside the walls. He turned slowly. On the floor, footprints, bare, small. Ash where the toes had pressed. He followed them to the far wall, where a single veil hung on a rusted nail. Beneath it, a basket. Empty. Except for a line of infant teeth wrapped in muslin. The veil twitched. And from the orchard, the bell rang once, then silence, then again slower, like it had to remember how. The bell never rang, not properly, not after. 1937. The rope would pull, the clapper would swing, but instead of a chime, there came a sound like breath caught in a throat too wet to swallow. Elias stood beneath the steeple of St. Olaf's, lantern flickering in the frozen draught that moved, like memory through the rafters. The bell loomed above newer bronze over older stone, but still wrong. Its mouth was blackened, its yoke warped as if something had pulled back against it. Hard enough to twist iron. He'd read the invoice weeks earlier, filed among war repair logs, recasting of steepled bell. July 1922, 87.3 kilograms donated material. Final weight, 91.6 kilograms. Someone had penciled a question beside it. Just a single word, teeth. Tonight, Elias had climbed the spiral tower not to study, but to listen. He stepped closer. The bell's inner walls bore the signature of its foundry, but scratched alongside it, invisible unless caught in slant light, were carvings small, shallow, uneven, rows of circles, some crescented like moons, others jagged. He touched one. It felt familiar, in a way no symbol should. A molar child-sized. Each groove matched human enamel. The indentations were not decorative. They were pressed inward, from within the cast, as though mouths small and many had shaped the bronze while it cooled. The wind shifted. From below came the slow groan of old ropes swaying. Elias looked down. The rope, it moved, but no one had pulled it. He stepped back. The lantern flickered, casting a smear of shadow across the bell's surface. In it, he saw himself, but the mouth was open, and inside that mouth, a clapper made of bone. He blinked. The shadow was gone. Only the rusted clapper remained, stilled and silent. In the parish archive, he'd found an addendum dated 1931. Bell chimes no longer aligned with known scale. Parishioners report wet overtone. Organist refuses to play beneath it. And then, scribbled faint in the margins, unsigned, "She must not wake." That's what they told the bell. Elias descended the steps slowly. Each one let out a different note. Not squeaks, not creaks. Tones. Like the steps remembered what the bell once sang. Below, in the nave, the air was thick with dust and old prayers. Light filtered through shattered stained glass, pooling violet on the flagstones where a child's bonnet had once been found, stitched shut with thread and ash. He passed beneath the choir loft and opened the cabinet marked MISC, not to file. Inside hymnals with no covers, a broken baptismal spoon, and a rolled parchment tied with infant hair. He unrolled it, a drawing, the bell, cut in cross-section. Inside it, dozens of small shapes, nestled around the clapper, labeled in Latin, dentis pure, natis absens, teeth, child born. Absent. The paper reeked of soot. He scanned the margin. There, a line in faded red ink, nearly lost to time. If the bell rings true, she opens her eyes. If the bell stutters, she dreams. If the bell, gurgles-run. Elias folded it shut. Then the sound came. Soft, behind the altar. Not a bell, not entirely. A wet clink, like something swung slowly and struck flesh, not metal. He followed it. At the base of the apse, the wall bore a patch of stone darker than the rest. Behind it, he'd once seen a trapdoor, a burial chute used centuries prior, now sealed. But tonight, it was open a finger's width. From inside breath, he knelt, laid the lantern down, looked closer. A bell rope hung within, coiled like a waiting tongue. Beside it, something glistened, a tooth, fresh, set in a smear of wax. A line of soot traced a path from it to the rope. He reached in, tugged once. The bell above moved. The church trembled. From the walls dust fell like grey snow. The stained glass rattled in its frame. Somewhere deep in the floor, a low gurgle began. He dropped the rope. Too late. The bell rang. Once, not high, not proud, but wet, like lungs filled with water, trying to call a name. Silence followed, then a whispered. From beneath the trap. Small, fragile, familiar. Not a word, a hum, and then a single syllable, broken by sleep. Me. Elias stumbled backward. The rope slithered in after him, not pulled, withdrawn. He turned, ran down the aisle, past pews scorched at their ends, past icons cracked across the eyes, past the baptismal font that now held only wax. He did not look back, but he heard it. Not footsteps. Shoeing. Soft. Measured. Rhythmic, and high above. From the tower steeple, the bell swayed once more, and did not stop. Elias had never seen a window buried underground, but this one tucked behind. A low arch in the parish crypt, hidden beneath an ossuary shelf, warped by damp and rot ploves, unmistakably stained glass. Fragments of it glimmered through layers of soot and salt, catching his lantern's breath like oil on water. There was no frame, no listing in the church's architectural log, only a line, handwritten in the margin of a midwife's letter from 1913. The window is watching. I will not deliver another child while it hangs. He crouched, scraping away mortar flakes with the side of his thumb. Dust kissed his tongue, metallic and sweet like rusted milk pans. The panel was set into rough stone, not meant for light, and yet light moved behind it, subtle, silvery, like moonlight dragged through ice. He angled the lantern closer. The image emerged slowly, as though waking from beneath ash. A robed figure held an infant. The folds of the cloth curled in on themselves, more shroud than swaddle. The adult's face was obscured, haloed in braided black glass flames. But the child, that was the true aberration. No features, no mouth, just skin where the face should be, stretched smooth and pale, like a candle left too close to a stove. Above the brow, a faint spiral etched in red glass, warped by fire. He raised a gloved hand and found his fingers trembling. She was not named in the records, not baptized, not mourned, but someone, somewhere, had immortalized her in this windowsill, in glass that was never meant to catch sunlight, only secrets. The crypt was cold, but not empty. Behind him, bones watched, femurs stacked like loaves in the wall, skulls with cotton still tucked in the ear canals. One of the machiles had a rosary threaded through the eye socket. Each bead was a small tooth. He turned back to the window. The spiral seemed deeper now, less etched, more cut, as if the glass had been flensed by something with purpose. And beneath the infant's faceless cheek, he looked long enough, was a second mouth, stitched shut with silver thread. Elias blinked. It vanished. He pressed his hand to the stone beside the panel. Warm, not the glass, the wall. He inhaled ash, soot, milk. He read the letter again. The midwife, anonymous, described a night in June unusually quiet. No wind, no moon. She was called to the convent through the orchard path, barefoot, as instructed. The sisters met her in silence. No greeting, no candle, only a bundle placed in her arms. She wrote. She did not cry, but she breathed, twice, then stilled. I turned to ask for salt, for linen, but the others were gone. The second page bore a line crossed through again and again, until the paper tore, but through the tears, the words were still legible. The window blinked. Elias touched the panel. It was too hot. He drew back. Behind the glass, the spiral turned. A hum began in the wall, low, faint, like the beginnings of a hymn not meant for sound. He heard no words, only the shape of them, sharp, vowel-heavy, ecclesiastical vowels twisted into something backward. He backed away, but his lantern stayed still, frozen mid-swing. He reached for it and saw a reflection. The glass, though dusty, caught it, not his face, hers. The infant from the panel now, with eyes open, grey too large, watching him from behind the red spiral, and in her mouth small, white teeth, too many, all flat. She moved, not a smile, a twitch. The reflection winked. The lantern extinguished, for one moment, total black, then light again, a flicker of flame, not from Elias's hand, but from beneath the panel itself. He crawled closer, and saw what he had missed. The base of the window had a channel carved in brass, a groove, blackened by use. It led to a small depression in the stone, shaped like a tongue. It was meant to catch something, drip by drip. There, congealed at the edge, wax. Child pale. He reached out, touched it, soft, still warm. He stood stumbling. Slightly, his shoulder struck the shelf behind him, and 3 skulls shifted in their places. One rolled to the edge and stopped, jaw open, as if mid-chant. He did not speak. He only walked back through the crypt, through the passage where silence thickened like mold, past the iron gate that groaned but did not resist, and up into the sacristy, where the candle had gone out long before he arrived. He did not return the letter to the drawer. He did not note the find in the ledger. He simply closed the door, and behind it the bell chimed just once, but no rope had been pulled. The sound came from below, and though no one else heard it, the glass did. The spiral pulsed once, faint and red, and did not fade. She was born in silence, and the window has never stopped, reflecting her. It was just a bowl. That's what she kept saying. A plain basin, old and cracked, sitting in her lap like something holy. The recorder clicked on, and she flinched just a little. Her hands were wrapped in linen, stained, not fresh. Something in the way she held them close made you think she was still holding someone, or something. She was called Sister Kirsty, but no one was really sure if that was her real name. The hospital log just said, admitted under duress, relapsed liturgical trauma. She had no family listed. The first thing she said was quiet, like she hadn't used her voice in years. The milk always turned, no matter how fast I poured. It turned. The room was too still. You could hear the softest things, the shift of her habit sleeve, the drip from the cracked pipe above her bed, even the gentle creak of the crucifix over the door, like it didn't want to hang there anymore. She leaned forward. It started before we were told. The silent baptisms, I remember. Her mouth trembled. The first one didn't even blink. The interviewer asked her something soft, too soft to make out on the tape. She shook her head. No, they came wrapped. Always wrapped. Wool, linen, never wet. And I was told, don't unwrap, just press the milk. She reached for the basin beside her. Empty now, but her hands trembled as if it was full. It had to be goat's milk. Always goat, never cow, and never warm. It had to be, still. Her breath hitched, not like crying, more like remembering something her body didn't want to. I touched it to their lips, just the edge, a single drop. Pause, and then it screamed. She looked up, not at the interviewer, at the wall behind him. Not them, not the babies, the milk. It screamed. She said it again. They didn't cry, but the milk screamed. The recorder buzzed faintly, like it was trying to erase itself. She spoke again, slower now. It would curdle right there, like it had touched something. Wrong. Not heat, not spit, just wrong. She held up one wrapped hand. I still smell it, burnt but cold, like when candles go out too fast. Another long silence. Then there was one I can't forget. The other said she wasn't alive, but her mouth moved, just a twitch, just once. She swallowed. I poured it anyway. The milk. It hissed. I swear to you, it hissed on her lips. A pause. She didn't drink it. She didn't even breathe. Her eyes darted to the corner, but she knew. You could hear her shift again. The basin clinked against her knee. The interviewer asked something sharp. She flinched, looked down. No, I didn't name them. That wasn't allowed. Her voice broke. But I wanted to. The tape hissed louder now, like wind was pressing against the window. But no one moved to close it. She went on. We kept them in the prayer closet. Afterward, just until the priest could come. Sometimes they stayed cold. Other times, they sweated. She reached into her robe, pulled out a small strip of muslin. This was one, from her swaddle. It smelled like milk for weeks after. But I burned it. I burned them all. The interviewer leaned forward, asked something again. Kirsty didn't answer, not right away. Then, one night, the milk basin moved. She held it tighter. I had left it in the sacristy, just for a minute, just to wash my hands. When I came back, it was on the altar, and there were teeth in it. She whispered that word, like it was a secret past between ghosts. Teeth, not baby ones, not adult, something else. She looked at the wall again. Her voice dropped. Low. I poured the rest down the font, but it floated. Milk doesn't float. Not like that. The room went cold. Or maybe it always was. She leaned forward, eyes wide, voice thinner than a whisper. The milk, does not forget. And then the basin cracked. Not loudly. Just a soft split, right there in her lap, like it had been waiting for her to say it. She stared at it, didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even blink. The tape stopped. 5 minutes later, no sound but the wind scratching glass. No answers, just silence, and the faint, sour smell of curdled milk clinging to the walls. The boy's name was Lucas. He was 11. And after that night, he never sang again. The sacristy key was missing for 2 days. No one said anything at first, just some murmuring during morning mass about creaking doors and odd drafts in the south corridor. But on the 3rd day, someone heard it, a scrape, like fingernails across stone. They opened the sacristy just after sunrise. And found him, curled in the farthest corner, knees drawn to his chest, shirt soaked in sweat, or something thicker. His mouth was open, not crying, just wide, like he'd been frozen mid-hymn waiting for the rest of the verse. They called his name. He didn't blink, didn't move, didn't even look up. But his mouth, it stayed open. A priest reached down to close it gently. That's when he saw them. The teeth, too many, not baby teeth, not adult either, just wrong. Rows, 4, maybe 5 layers, packed deep in his gums like they'd grown overnight. but no blood, not even swelling, just ... Too many teeth for one mouth. The report didn't mention that part. It just said, acute, vocal loss, likely trauma, but Sister Katrinshi was there. She was the one who whispered it to the nurse later, hands shaking over her rosary. They gave him new teeth, but not a voice to use them. Lucas didn't speak, not ever again. He was transferred to the parish's affiliated school 2 towns over, a place meant for spiritually disrupted minors. That's what the file said. It was stamped in red. At the top, he wasn't punished, wasn't blamed, but no one visited. No one asked what happened in that room, except one teacher, a young man freshly placed. He noticed Lucas drawing during morning lecture. Not once, but every day. The same thing. Over and over. A crib, just one, drawn in pencil, sometimes charcoal, always from the same angles, lightly tilted, like it had been pushed, and it was always empty, but always rocking. He never added anything else. No figures, no curtains, no hands reaching toward it, just the crib and the shadows beneath it. Sometimes he would shade them for hours, darker and darker, until the pencil broke, until his fingers were raw from pressure. One afternoon, the teacher sat beside him. He pointed at the picture. "Lucas," he said softly, "is this something you saw?" No answer. He tried again. "Was someone there with you?" In the sacristy. Lucas stared at the crib. Then he slowly raised his hand and tapped his chin once. Not with a finger, with a tooth. It had come loose. He'd pulled it out, and he placed it gently on the desk, right beside the drawing. It was too flat, too smooth. The teacher picked it up. It was still warm. Lucas didn't draw after that. He just sat, sometimes humming no notes, just the vibration, like a tuning fork buried too deep to ring. At night, the staff would hear shuffling near his room. They checked more than once. Always empty, except for the smell, old milk, and soot. One night, a sister on rounds said she saw something. A figure, small, white, gowned. Standing in the hallway mirror, but not facing it, and beside her a crib. Rocking. No, baby, just a humming sound. The sister didn't return the next day. She left a note, one line. He never closed his mouth. That's how she got in. The school burned 3 years later. No deaths. No cause found. But Lucas disappeared that night. No trace, no body, not even ash. Just a singed drawing pinned to the charred floorboards. The crib still empty, still rocking. And beneath it, drawn in wax this time, was a circle of teeth. All small, all flat, and one phrase, scratched into the wood, like it had been whispered there again and again. They didn't bury her name. They baptized it. The air changed a second. Elias touched the lock, not cold or heavy, like the air itself had been holding its breath for a very, very long time. The door to the municipal archive was warped with age, and something else. The sign above it, half-rotted oak, just said records unsorted, but someone had crossed out unsorted and scratched in a word below, unspoken. He didn't want to open it, but his hand moved anyway. Down here beneath the chapel, beneath the crypt, beneath the old school. They said the archive hadn't been touched in nearly 60 years. Not really, just dusted, catalogued from a distance. Some names were too heavy to file. Elias stepped inside. The lantern made the dark shrink, but not disappear. The shelves towered, wood bent from moisture. Some parchment looked ... soaked, but not with water. The smell, iron, like rust, or blood left too long in a bowl. He blinked. Their far wall, a red cloth, covering something. No, wrapped around it tight, as if it had once tried to get out. He walked past scrolls flaking at the touch, past boxes tied with hair, past a rope, still knotted, still wet. He didn't ask why. He found a hymnal on the floor, wide open. The notes were blotted, like someone had sung through their teeth until they bled. In the margins, pressed into the damp, "She isn't buried, she's kept." Elias didn't know how he recognized the handwriting, but he did. He dropped to one knee, and the stone beneath him breathed. Not fast, not loud, but real. He put a hand down flat and felt it. A pulse, slow, rhythmic, like a nursery rhyme, hummed through earth behind him. Pages fluttered, no wind, still. They moved. He turned, shelf for a burial documents, except the folders were all stitched shut, with thread the color of teeth. One had a wax seal, shaped like a crib. He opened it. Inside, not papers, a veil, stained dark in the middle, and something wrapped inside. It fingers, small bone, tied together with rosary wire. He stepped back, hit the shelf, a scroll dropped, unfurled. It wasn't writing. It was a child's drawing. Crayon fade gray, a crib. Empty, but the shadows underneath, they were full of mouths. He felt sick, hands cold, but he couldn't stop. His eyes pulled toward the red cloth again. He stepped over hymnals, bones, something half sunken in soot. He reached it. The cloth was warm. He pulled it away. A mirror cracked, framed, in baby teeth, not nailed, embedded, and the glass moved, but not like a reflection, more like something behind it. He stared, and something stared back, not eyes, just knowing. And then, his name whispered, right behind him. He spun. No one, just the lantern swaying, like it had been nudged. He turned back to the mirror, but now it was showing something else. The archive floor. Rows of cribs. Rocking. And something crawling underneath them. He stepped back, hit the shelf again. This time, it fell, and behind it a door. Hidden. Barely taller than his chest. It wasn't locked. Just latched from the inside. It clicked open. The air that came out, wet. Sweet, like milk gone bad. Inside was one item, a basin. Blackened with age, full of parchment soaked through. Words melted into pink shapes. One floated to the top. He lifted it out. On the page only one line remained. If you see her mouth open, run. He dropped it. The milk basin gurgled. Behind him the shelves hummed. Not the wood, not the paper. The pages. All of them, as if they were remembering a song. They were forced to keep. His lantern sputtered. He turned to leave, but the mirror. It was closer. He didn't move it, didn't touch it, but it had moved. Right up behind him, and in the glass's face, but the mouth, it opened. Wide. Too wide, and inside, teeth, not his, not human. Small, flat, too many. They clicked. Once, twice. He slammed the lantern down. It shattered. Flame caught paper, just a little, but the light. Lit something behind the mirror. A shape. Curled. SWADD LED. Rocking. Elias turned. Ran. The archive shook behind him. Pages turned. Cribs groaned, and from somewhere deep in the stack, say a single word. Soft, crooked, like a tooth falling from a mouth that never should have had one. Mama. He didn't stop running, didn't look back, but as he slammed the vault door shut, the hum didn't stop, and the flame didn't spread. It just watched, because whatever lived down there, was never meant to burn, and never meant to sleep. The reel clicked into place, like a jaw closing. Elias didn't move at first. He just sat there, staring at the machine like it might bite. The metal spool trembled gently, not from the projector, but from something else. Like the air around it didn't want the film to spin. He pressed play anyway. The screen shuddered. That then flickered. Then light. Dust floated through the beam. Like ash in chapel smoke, the image sharpened slowly, grainy sepia, but it was real. The year scratched in the corner, said 1913, a hillside, sloped and shadowed. The angle was wrong, like the camera had been placed low, maybe hidden. The earth looked damp, dug. The graves were open already. 7 men stood near them, each in black. No collars, just robes, slightly too long, and in their arms bundles, wrapped in pale linen, swaddled, each one identical. No movement, except the way they were held. Not like coffins, more like babies. Elias leaned forward. There were no hymns, no prayers, no sound at all. The wind didn't blow, the trees didn't move, even the soil looked still, like it was holding its breath. One man stepped forward, unwrapped the linen from the top of his bundle. And Elias flinched. The infant wasn't asleep. She wasn't breathing, but her eyes were open. Wide, just enough to know, and her mouth stitched shut with black thread, thick like it had been looped in a rush, maybe during birth. Scripture fragments were sewn into the cloth, verses torn and soaked through. A second man raised his hand, not to bless but to signal, one finger to the lips. Silence, and then they began. Not a burial, right. They lowered the infants. Slowly. Carefully, but no soil was placed, not yet. Instead, baptismal bowls, each filled with water that didn't shine. Just sat there, dark, flat, One man dipped his fingers in dot, held them above the child's chest, dripped it once, twice, then stopped. Another man knelt and cried, not loudly, dot, not even visibly, just a single tear rolling down to his chin. Then he pulled thread from his pocket and began to sew. Not the child, dot, his own mouth. He didn't wince, didn't flinch, just stitched it closed, dot, one loop at a time. Elias felt the chill then, dot, real, dot, seeping up through the floor. He pressed, paused, dot, silence, no hum, no crackle, just cold. He looked behind him, dot, empty, but dot, 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 something watched. He knew it. The reel clicked again. It kept going. He hadn't pressed play. The image returned, now closer. The camera had been moved, lowered into the grave. Yes, dot, 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 it looked up, dot, at the men, and above them sky, and something swinging a bell. But it didn't ring, it never rang, not even once, only moved. And then, dot, 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 one of the infants are twitched, dot, so small, just a finger, barely there. But Elias saw it plain as breath. The others didn't notice, or maybe, dot, 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 they weren't allowed to notice. They kept lowering, dot, one, dot, then another, until the screen filled with linen. The last bundle was placed, but this time the cloth was loose, dot, and under the edge, dot, 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 something moved. The tiniest inhale, a twitch of the chin, a mouth trying to open but stitched shut. The camera pulled back. The men gathered, all knelt, one by one, dot, dot, they sewed, all of them, mouths sealed, eyes closed, hands trembling, except one, the priest. He stared straight into the lens. His lips weren't sewn, yet, dot, tears ran down, one after another, but no sound. He looked like he wanted to scream, or confess, or beg. And then his hand lifted, pressed to his chest, and he mouthed something. 2 words. Elias leaned in, paused the reel, rewound, 3 seconds, played again, dot, slower, watched, the lips, dot, carefully, 2 words, she's awake. The screen went white, not faded, just gone. The reel kept spinning, but there was nothing else. No ending, no final shot, just dot, 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 stillness, until the hum started. Not from the projector, from the walls, low, low, thick, almost like dot, dot, a lullaby. He turned it off, but the hum didn't stop. It pulsed, dot, once, twice, dot, from deep below, and the film, still warm, dot, like it remembered the hands that fed it through. Dot. Elias stood, dot, slowly turned toward the stairs, and stopped, dot, there on the bottom step. ASWADDLE, dot, folded, dot, empty, but rocking just slightly back, dot, and forth. The air shifted again, not cold this time, dot, not warm, dot, just, dot, 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 full, dot, full of something that knew his name. He stepped back, and then faintly, almost tender, a whisper from nowhere, from the projector, from the reel. No, dot, from beneath the floor. She was not stillborn, dot, 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 pause, but she was still buried. The stairs behind the choir loft weren't on any map. Elias only found them because the floorboards creaked wrong beneath the organ bench, dot, 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 like something breathing underneath. He ran his hand along the wood and felt it barely just the shape of a seam. Old, dust-packed, but real, dot. He pressed. It gave a hush, fell over the loft like a blanket dropped from high up. He took a step down, and then another, dot. Each board groaned in protest, like it remembered, dot, dot, and didn't want to be walked again. No one had been here in decades, maybe longer. The light thinned with every step, smelled different too, like old milk and iron, dot. His fingers brushed the wall, cold, carved, dot, words, but not in Latin, not at first. They were lullabies, he could tell from the rhythm, but backwards, sung to close, not soothe. The walls narrowed, and then the room, low ceiling, bare bulbs that didn't hum, just rose, cribs, dozens of them, each one modern, too modern for the church. Metal bars, clean new paint, like they'd been wheeled in from a hospital wing that didn't exist anymore. But dot, 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 unused, no dust inside them, no lint, just blankets, folded sharp, neat, waiting. Elias blinked hard. He didn't move, dot, COULDN, single quotes, T dots. The air felt syrup thick, heavy, like the sound of someone else breathing behind your own breath. He walked forward, dot, slow. Each crib was empty, but every single one rocked, dot, just a little, not like a draft, not random, together, in time, like dot, 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 like a choir, but no voices, dot, just the soft wooden creak, creak, like a hymn trying to wake. At the center, one crib had a blanket pulled up, not folded, not crisp. Pulled. Like it was tucking something in. He stared at it, didn't blink, didn't speak. The blanket rose, just a little, as if something tiny shifted underneath. And then the hum, not loud, almost kind, but off. Wrong, like someone singing from underwater, with the words caught in their throat. He backed up, didn't turn. Eyes still on the crib, he whispered, I didn't mean to come in here. The lullaby paused, just a beat, then started again. Backward, he turned to run, but the hallway was gone. Just wall, solid stone, seamless, no handle, no wood. Just more carvings, deep ones, now. Not lullabies, names. Elias saw his, not just his first, his middle name. No one knew that, not even him. He touched it, still warm. Behind him the crib stopped rocking, so did the others. All at once, the air flattened out, like the moment after a bell tolls and the silence swallows everything. Elias turned and saw her, not a baby, not a girl, just her, wrapped in cloth stitched with thread that moved like it didn't want to stay still. No face, no eyes, but she was watching. He knew it. His knees gave. He dropped hard, hands scraping the floor. He tried to crawl. Coulden, single quotes, T. She hadn't moved. The lullaby was inside his head now, and it was his voice singing it. He covered his ears. Didn't help. It hummed behind his eyes. He felt something warm in his nose. Blood. Maybe. Or milk. He looked down. White streaks on the floorboards, thick. Spoilt. Like it had sat too long in the throat of a bottle. No one wanted to feed from it. Trailed from the crib, all the way to his knees. Still warm, still moving. It reached for him. He wanted to scream, but his jaw locked, tongue heavy. Mouthful. With what? He didn't know, didn't want to, just tried to breathe through it. Didn't work. She was closer now, but hadn't moved. Just nearer, the way dreams do. Elias shook his head. No. The milk touched his hand. He whimpered. It burned. He pressed his palm to the floor. Felt carvings, smaller now, not names. Not songs. Cries. One word over and over. Why? Why? He whispered it. Didn't mean to. It came out cracked, barely sound. Behind him one crib rocked again. Just one. Slow, and then the hum stopped. He lifted his head. The crib was empty. The blanket folded, crisp clean, like it never held anything at all, except. There was a sound now, not a hum, a breath. From his own chest, but it wasn't his. Something else was inside it, breathing through him. He tried to cry, but no tears came, only a sound. Soft, delicate, like the start of a lullaby. From a mouth that was never meant to sing. Behind him, on the wall, a carving shifted. Fresh. Still wet. New words, only 4, until the choir sleeps. He closed his eyes, and the milk dripped. From his open mouth.